I'm Desda Zuckerman. Welcome to my podcast, The World of Sacred Healing, where we learn about and discuss the magic and the mystery of the spiritual life and the deep healing of the soul. Today I'm going to talk about the sacred anatomy layers system. Specifically, I'm going to talk about the etheric layer. So first of all, there's, I think, a misconception, which is the role of the etheric layer and that the etheric layer is somehow very close to the physical body. In sacred anatomy, it is not. The etheric layer is actually pretty far away from the physical body, like 15 feet. And it has 8 different strata. It's the biggest of all the layers, in fact. There are 8 of them, 8 layers. And the etheric layer begins, the innermost stratum of the etheric layer starts with what we call inception. So inception is that experience of choosing who your parents are going to be, setting your intention for a life, and meeting with the council of elders. So it's very ritualized, it's very specific, and it's fundamental. The next is first phase, and first phase is what is dedicated to the experience of being conceived, the experience of growing in your mother's body, and then childbirth, so being born into a physical life. The next one is infancy, which goes from the moment of birth all the way through until really the beginning of childhood, which is really about 4 or 5 years old. So it takes about through the first 3 years, infancy. And then childhood comes, and childhood is the years that start somewhere around 4 or 5 years old and then goes all the way into, for girls, at the beginning of menstrual cycle, and for boys, the puberty. So that's about what we would consider childhood. And then begins the time called youth. So youth is a whole other strata. And in that strata, we take people all the way from the beginning of puberty, or for young women, the beginning of the menstrual cycle, all the way up until they accomplish what could be only called maturity. So maturity is the next one. And some people arrive at maturity at 30. Some people arrive at maturity at 65. Some people never arrive at maturity. But if they do, maturity is the next strata. And then right after maturity, which takes you all the way through really up until you begin to die. And then the death and karma strata is next. And so it's a place where karmic contracts are resolved, where death experiences are noted, and the overarching belief around death is stored. And it's a very important part of the etheric layer. Next is a part, and this is the final one, called the experience, recent experience. So recent experience means what's happened to you in the last 24 to 48 hours, the stuff that hasn't really been logged. Because frankly, the etheric layer is actually a place of historical documentation. And all throughout the etheric layer are little caves. And in those caves, there are, for the different sort of phases of life, there are places in the caves where information is stored, and actually the entire record of your soul's journey is stored. So every time you've been a youth, every time you've been born, every time you've come in for a lifetime and decided you want to set your intention with the council of elders, every time that you've had a death experience, every time that you have accomplished maturity, each and every time that's happened, there's a little cave, a special little place that's where your memories are stored. So the etheric layer can actually be read, and that's what people call an etheric reading. So when I teach etheric reading, I teach people to attune themselves to the etheric layer and then travel into the part of the etheric layer that they want to examine. So it's a very interesting process, and wow, do we get some amazing readings. Really incredible stuff. I think one of the most exciting things about the etheric layer is where it's located, because it's really far out. It's almost to the edge of the anatomy. The only part of it that's further than the etheric is the soul layer. So the soul layer is right at the edge of the sacred anatomy. So this structure of the etheric, you could think of it as being the furthest away from the physical body, but you could also think of it as being the very first layer that's formed after the soul layer. So it is the first thing that we need. We need a place to record our experiences. And that's what begins here in the etheric layer. The etheric layer, one of the most exciting parts of the sacred anatomy, one of the 8 layers of the layer system. Thank you so much for joining me. I've loved spending time with you. Please don't forget to leave a review. Visit us at yoursacredanatomy.com.